If you want to understand the world Alexander conquered, the world that shaped the empires that came after it, all the way down to some of the administrative habits of empires we still study today, you have to start here. Not in Athens. In Persis with a boy named Cyrus, and a story about a vine that grew to cover Asia. This is the most honest story of the Achaemenid Empire. 200 years before Alexander the Great was born, a boy from a minor hill tribe in the south of modern Iran began building an empire that would stretch further than any that had come before it. From the Aegean Sea to the Indus River, from the deserts of Egypt to the steppes of Central Asia. At its height, it governed something close to 44% of the world's population. It gave the world its first international highway system, its first empire-wide postal service, and, depending on which historian you ask, its first attempt at religious tolerance as state policy. You know the empire that eventually replaced it. You know the Greeks who fought it at Marathon and Thermopylae. But how much do you actually know about Persia itself, the empire the Greeks were fighting? This is the story of the Achaemenid Empire, not the villain of a Spartan legend. The largest, most administratively sophisticated state the world had yet seen. And it began, according to the man who built it, with a dream about a vine that grew to cover the whole of Asia. To understand how Persia rose, you have to understand who the Persians were before Cyrus. The Persians were an Iranian-speaking people related to the Medes, who migrated onto the Iranian plateau sometime before the 9th century BCE. By the 7th century BCE, they had settled in the region called Persis, modern Fars province in southern Iran, which is where their name comes from. For generations, the Persians were not independent. They were vassals of the Median Empire, a rival Iranian kingdom to the north that had grown powerful by helping destroy the Assyrian Empire in 612 BCE. The Medes, under kings like Cyaxares and his son Astyages, controlled a large swath of the Iranian plateau and treated the Persian tribes, including the ruling family of Persis, the Achaemenids, named for a semi-legendary ancestor called Achaemenes, as subordinate. Herodotus tells a famous story that Astyages, king of the Medes, dreamed his daughter Mandane's urine flooded all of Asia, and later dreamed a vine grew from her womb and covered the continent. His priests told him this meant her son would overthrow him. Astyages married Mandane off to a Persian nobleman, Cambyses I, specifically to keep the bloodline weak, and when she gave birth to a boy, Astyages allegedly ordered the infant killed. The order was disobeyed. The child was raised in secret. That child was Cyrus. This story, full of dream omens and secret survivals, is a classic chosen founder legend, the same narrative pattern you find attached to Sargon of Akkad, Moses, and Romulus. Historians treat it as folklore that grew up around Cyrus after his success, not as a reliable account of his childhood. What we can say with more confidence is this: Cyrus was born around 600 to 580 BCE to Cambyses I, king of Anshan, a Persian vassal state under the Medes, and Mandane, a Median princess, making him half Median by blood, which likely mattered later when he needed Median elites to accept his rule. Cyrus inherited the throne of Anshan around 559 BCE, still a vassal of the Medes. What he did next changed the shape of the ancient world. In 553 BCE, Cyrus rebelled against his own grandfather, Astyages. The war lasted 3 years. According to Herodotus, the turning point came when Harpagus, a Median general Astyages had once punished brutally for disobeying in order to kill the infant Cyrus, defected to the Persian side with a large portion of the Median army. In 550 BCE, Cyrus captured the Median capital of Ecbatana and took Astyages prisoner. Rather than executing him, Cyrus reportedly kept him at court, a mercy that became something of a Cyrus trademark. This was not a Persian conquest of Media so much as a merger. Cyrus absorbed the Median aristocracy into his new state rather than destroying it, and the resulting entity is what historians call the Achaemenid Empire. Cyrus did not stop there. In approximately 547 BCE, war with the fabulously wealthy king Croesus of Lydia, in modern Turkey. Herodotus tells the story of Croesus asking the oracle at Delphi whether he should attack Persia, receiving the answer, "If you attack, a great empire will be destroyed," and assuming it meant Persia's. It meant his own. Cyrus defeated him, reportedly at the Battle of Thymbra, and took Lydia, gaining control of the wealthy Greek cities of Ionia on the Anatolian coast as a side effect. In 539 BC, Cyrus conquered Babylon, the dominant power of Mesopotamia, reportedly without a major siege. Babylonian priestly and administrative texts suggest the city's own elite, unhappy with King Nabonidus's religious policies, were receptive to Persian rule. After taking Babylon, Cyrus issued a proclamation, recorded on a clay artifact known as the Cyrus Cylinder, that allowed displaced peoples the Babylonians had deported, including the Judean exiles, to return to their homelands and rebuild their temples. The Hebrew Bible, Book of Ezra, independently credits Cyrus with authorizing the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. Some modern commentators call the Cylinder the first human rights charter. That framing is a 20th century interpretation and a stretch by modern legal standards, since it doesn't resemble a universal rights document. What it does clearly show is a policy of restoring local cults and populations rather than erasing them, which was a real and significant departure from Assyrian and some earlier imperial practice. Cyrus governed his rapidly expanding territory by installing satraps, provincial governors, often drawn from Persian or Median nobility, sometimes his own relatives, a system his successor Darius would later formalize. His brother-in-law and General Harpagus continued campaigns in Anatolia after the Lydian conquest. His son Cambyses II was made governor of Babylon in his father's lifetime and groomed as heir. Cyrus's principal wife was Cassandane, by whom he had at least 2 sons, Cambyses II and Bardia, also called Smyrdes, and daughters including Atassa, who would later marry Darius I and become one of the most powerful women in Achaemenid history and Stone. Beyond this core family, the full roster of Cyrus's household, the number of secondary wives or concubines typical of a Near Eastern royal court, is not reliably recorded, and this script will not invent numbers where the sources are silent. In 530 BCE, Cyrus led a campaign against the Masashte, a nomadic Central Asian people ruled by Queen Tomiris, east of the Caspian Sea. Herodotus reports that Cyrus died in battle against them, and that Tomiris, whose son had died by Persian trickery during the campaign, had his body's head thrust into a skin filled with blood, saying she would give him his fill of the blood he thirsted for. Other ancient sources, Ctesias, Xenophon, give different, less gruesome accounts of his death, including one where he died peacefully of illness. What's agreed is that Cyrus died on campaign in the east around 530 BCE and was buried at his new capital, Pasargadae, in a tomb that still stands today. Alexander the Great, when he conquered Persia 2 centuries later, reportedly wept at this tomb and ordered it restored after finding it looted. That's the measure of the reputation Cyrus left behind, respected even by the empire that destroyed his. Cyrus's eldest son, Cambyses II, inherited an empire already the largest the world had seen, and immediately set his sights on the one great power still outside it, Egypt. In 525 BCE, Cambyses defeated Pharaoh Psamtik III at the Battle of Pelusium, aided by intelligence from a defected Greek general, Phans, and naval support from Polycrates of Samos. Egypt became a Persian satrapy, and Cambyses is recorded in some Egyptian sources performing the traditional duties of a pharaoh, suggesting, at least at first, an attempt to rule Egypt through its own religious and political customs rather than as an occupying outsider. Later Greek writers, especially Herodotus, painted Cambyses as a madman who desecrated Egyptian temples and stabbed the sacred Apis bull. But Egyptian contemporary sources largely contradict this picture, and modern historians treat Herodotus's account here as heavily colored by the Greek habit of depicting Persian kings as tyrants once they'd overreached. Cambyses reportedly launched a disastrous expedition against the kingdom of Kush, Nubia, that failed due to lack of supplies, and lost an entire army, by later legend 50,000 men, swallowed by a sandstorm while marching to attack the oasis of Siwa. No physical trace of this lost army has ever been confirmed despite repeated searches, and many historians now suspect the story, again from Herodotus, is exaggerated or entirely apocryphal. Before leaving for Egypt, Cambyses, according to Darius I's own later account on the Behistun inscription, secretly had his brother Bardia killed, fearing a rival claim to the throne, and kept the killing hidden from the public. Cambyses died childless. In 522 BCE, while marching back from Egypt through Syria, Cambyses died under circumstances even ancient sources couldn't agree on. Darius later claimed Cambyses died by his own hand once he realized his rule was collapsing. Herodotus says it was an accidental wound from his own sword while mounting his horse, which turned gangrenous. Either way, he died without an heir in the same summer that a crisis was already exploding back home. While Cambyses was in Egypt, a man appeared in Persia claiming to be his brother Bardia, the brother Cambyses had secretly murdered years earlier, and seized the throne. According to Darius I's own inscription at Behistun, this man was actually an impostor, a magus, priest, named Gaugamela, impersonating the dead prince, and the real Bardia had already been killed on Cambyses's orders. Some modern historians accept this account largely at face value. Others argue the opposite is more likely, that this really was Bardia, and that the impostor story was propaganda invented after the fact by Darius, a usurper with no legitimate claim to the throne, to justify his own killing of a legitimate Achaemenid prince. There is no way to fully resolve this from the surviving evidence, and any honest documentary has to present it as an open question, not a settled fact. Whichever version is true, in September 522 BCE, a group of 7 Persian noblemen, including a young noble named Darius, son of Hystaspes, a distant cousin of the royal line, assassinated the man on the throne, and Darius emerged as king. Darius was not Cyrus's son. He wasn't even from the direct royal line. He came to power through a coup with 7 men and a horse trick that, by Herodotus's account, decided who among them would be king. His first years were spent putting down revolt after revolt across the empire, from Babylon to Media to Egypt, all recorded in detail on the Behistun inscription, a massive relief carved into a cliff face in western Iran, in 3 languages, that Darius commissioned specifically to broadcast his version of events to his subjects and to history. It is, in effect, the empire's own founding propaganda document, and also one of the single most valuable historical sources we have for this period, because it's contemporary in Persian, not second-hand in Greek. To secure his legitimacy, Darius married Atassa, daughter of Cyrus the Great and widow of both Cambyses and the false Bardia, binding himself directly into the original royal bloodline. He also married several other royal women, including Cyrus's daughter Artistone and Cambyses's daughter Parmes, deliberately stitching his new branch of the family into the old one. He formalized the satrapy system. The empire was divided into roughly 20 provinces, each under a satrap, governor, with a separate military commander and a royal secretary reporting directly to the king. A deliberate separation of powers designed to prevent any one satrap from building an independent power base. He built the royal road, roughly 2,700 kilometers from Sardis in Anatolia to Susa in Persia, with staging posts allowing royal messengers to cover the distance in about a week using relay riders. The ancient world's fastest long-distance communication system, and a likely ancestor of the phrase later associated with royal couriers about neither rain nor heat nor darkness stopping them. He introduced a standardized imperial currency, the gold daric and silver siglos, and pushed towards standardized weights and measures across the empire. He commissioned the construction of Persepolis, the ceremonial capital, and dug an early version of a canal connecting the Nile to the Red Sea. He formalized taxation across the satrapies, moving the empire from tribute on demand toward a fixed, assessed system. Darius campaigned against the Scythians north of the Black Sea around 513 BCE, a campaign generally regarded as inconclusive or unsuccessful in its stated aims. He expanded the empire's eastern border into parts of the Indus Valley. Most famously, he became entangled in the Ionian Revolt, 499 to 493 BCE, when Greek cities under Persian rule on the Anatolian coast rebelled, with support from Athens and Eretria. Darius crushed the revolt, then turned his attention to punishing Athens directly. In 490 BCE, a Persian expeditionary force was defeated by a much smaller Athenian army at the Battle of Marathon, a genuine military setback, though a relatively minor one in terms of the empire's overall resources, magnified enormously in later Western memory because of what it meant to Athenian identity. Darius died in October 486 BCE, reportedly of natural causes/illness, while preparing a renewed invasion of Greece to avenge Marathon. He was buried at Nakshi Rustam, and the tomb he built there, with its now famous facade, became the model for the tombs of several of his successors. He was succeeded by his son with Atassa, Xerxes I. If you've seen 300, you've met a cartoon version of this man. The real Xerxes inherited his father's unfinished war with Greece, and an empire that, by this point, was the largest and richest the world had ever organized. Xerxes first had to suppress revolts in Egypt, which he did in 484 BCE, and Babylon, twice around 484 and 482 BCE, the latter revolt reportedly ending with the razing of some Babylonian temple structures, a departure from the more conciliatory religious policy of Cyrus and Darius, and a sign of how much unrest the empire's growth had generated. The Greek invasion, 480 to 479 BC, Xerxes assembled what ancient sources describe as an enormous multinational army and fleet. Herodotus's figures, over 1 million men, are almost universally rejected by modern historians as wildly inflated. Modern estimates for the land force generally range from roughly 100,000 to 300,000, still a staggering logistical achievement for the ancient world, supported by a purpose-built pontoon bridge across the Hellespont and a canal cut through the Mount Athos. peninsula to avoid a previous fleet disaster there. Thermopylae, 480 BCE Persian forces, guided by a local Greek informant to a mountain path, outflanked and destroyed a small Greek rearguard led by the Spartan king Leonidas. Battle of Salamis, 480 BCE, a major naval defeat for Persia against a combined Greek fleet in the straits near Athens. Xerxes reportedly watched from a hillside throne. This defeat crippled Persian naval logistics for supplying the land army. Battle of Plataea, 479 BCE, a decisive Greek land victory that effectively ended the Persian invasion of the Greek mainland, with the Persian commander Mardonius killed. After Plataea, Xerxes abandoned direct campaigns against mainland Greece and returned to Persia, shifting from military conquest to consolidating his existing empire and undertaking major building projects at Persepolis, including the Gate of All Nations. Xerxes's principal wife was Amestris, by whom he had several children, including his eventual successor Artaxerxes I and a son named Darius. Court intrigue around succession would define the empire's next several reigns. In 465 BCE, Xerxes was assassinated in a palace conspiracy led by Artabanus, the commander of his royal bodyguard, one of the clearest signs of how dangerous the Achaemenid court itself had become to its kings, arguably more dangerous than any foreign enemy. Artabanus initially maneuvered to have Xerxes's son Darius blamed and executed for the murder, before Xerxes's other son, Artaxerxes I, uncovered the plot and had Artabanus and his co-conspirators killed, taking the throne himself. The century after Xerxes is less familiar to most people. No Thermopylae, no burning Athens, but it's arguably where the empire shows its real staying power. A state that kept functioning across enormous distances for generations, even as the throne itself became increasingly unstable. Artaxerxes I reign, 465 to 424 BCE, roughly 41 years, one of the longest Achaemenid reigns. He secured the throne after his father's murder, then survived a rebellion by his brother Hystaspes. His reign is defined less by expansion than by managing an already vast empire and playing a long diplomatic game with Greece. He funded Sparta against Athens as a matter of policy, weakening the mainland Greeks by proxy rather than through direct invasion, and negotiated the Peace of Callias, c. 449 BCE, that formally ended large-scale Greco-Persian hostilities. He also hosted the exiled Athenian statesman Themistocles, Xerxes's old enemy, at his court. Artaxerxes I is also significant in biblical history as the king under whom, per the book of Nehemiah, the walls of Jerusalem were rebuilt. He died of apparently natural causes in December 424 BCE, one of the few Achaemenid kings to do so. The succession crisis of 424 to 423 BCE. This is one of the strangest years in Achaemenid history. Artaxerxes I's designated heir, Xerxes II, ruled for only about 45 days before being assassinated, by some accounts, by his own half-brother Sogdianus. Sogdianus then held the throne for roughly 6 to 7 months before he himself was overthrown and killed by another half-brother, Achus, who took the throne as Darius II. 3 kings in under a year, a clear sign of how brutal and fractured succession within the royal family had become. Darius II's reign, 423 to 404 BCE, roughly 19 years. His rule is associated with continued internal instability, satrapal revolts, and heavy reliance on his wife and half-sister, Persides, who wielded enormous influence at court, reportedly directing court executions and policy. Persia intervened in the Peloponnesian War during his reign, generally backing Sparta against Athens, a policy that helped tip the war and would shape the next generation's politics. Artaxerxes II's reign, 404 to 358 BCE, roughly 46 years, the longest reign of any Achaemenid king. His reign opens with one of the empire's most famous internal wars. His younger brother, Cyrus the Younger, backed by a large force of Greek mercenaries, later immortalized in Xenophon's Anabasis, attempted to seize the throne. The two brothers' armies met at the Battle of Cunaxa, 401 BCE. Cyrus was killed in the fighting, ending the rebellion, though the Greek mercenaries' famous fighting retreat afterward exposed Persia's western vulnerabilities to Greek observers for a generation. The rest of Artaxerxes II's extraordinarily long reign was marked by chronic revolts, most damagingly the loss of Egypt around 404 to 400 BCE, which broke away and stayed independent of Persian rule for roughly 60 years, a major and lasting loss of imperial territory. He also had to deal with the Great Satraps' revolt in the empire's western provinces in the 360s BCE. Artaxerxes III Achus, reign 358 to 338 BCE, roughly 20 years, often described by historians as the most ruthless of the later Achaemenid kings, and also one of the more militarily effective. Ancient accounts, especially later Greek ones, accuse him of murdering large numbers of his own relatives on taking the throne to eliminate rivals. Modern historians treat the scale of this as likely exaggerated, but accept that succession purges of some kind were real. On the achievement side of the ledger, Artaxerxes III reconquered Egypt around 343 BCE, reversing 6 decades of lost territory and reuniting the empire at close to its old extent, arguably the last genuine high point of Achaemenid power. He was poisoned in 338 BCE, according to the Greek historian Diodorus, by his own chiliarch, a powerful court/military office roughly equivalent to a chancellor, the eunuch Bagoas, who then placed Artaxerxes' young son on the throne as a puppet. A surviving cuneiform tablet suggests Artaxerxes III may actually have died of natural causes, contradicting the poisoning story. Another case where Greek and Babylonian sources disagree and neither can be fully verified. Artaxerxes IV Arses, reign 338 to 336 BCE, roughly 2 years, installed by Bagoas specifically because he was seen as controllable. When Arses tried to move against Bagoas to free himself from the eunuch's influence, Bagoas had him poisoned first, ending his brief reign and with it, the direct royal line's control of its own succession. Darius III reign 336 to 330 BCE, roughly 6 years, the last Achaemenid king, a distant relative of the royal family, raised to the throne by Bagoas, who then executed Bagoas soon after taking power. Darius III inherited an empire that was still vast and wealthy but that had spent the better part of a century in near-constant succession crises and revolts, and he inherited it just as a new threat was rising in the west. Philip II of Macedon, and after Philip's assassination in 336 BCE, his son Alexander. The challenge that ended the empire. 334 BCE, Alexander crosses into Asia Minor and defeats Persian forces at the Battle of the Granicus. 333 BCE, at the Battle of Issus, Alexander personally defeats Darius III's army. Darius flees the field, and his mother, wife, and children are captured by the Macedonians. 331 BCE, at the Battle of Gaugamela near modern-day Erbil in Iraq, Alexander decisively defeats Darius III's much larger force. This battle effectively ends organized Achaemenid resistance. Alexander goes on to occupy Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis, the last of which is partially burned, an event ancient sources dispute the motive for: deliberate revenge for Xerxes's burning of Athens 150 years earlier, versus a drunken accident. Darius III fled eastward, still nominally king, but in 330 BCE he was seized and then murdered by his own satrap of Bactria, Bessus, who briefly proclaimed himself king before Alexander hunted him down and executed him. Alexander reportedly found Darius's body and gave it an honorable royal burial, symbolically presenting himself as Darius's legitimate successor rather than simply his conqueror. With Darius III's death, the Achaemenid Empire, after roughly 220 years, ceased to exist as an independent state, absorbed into Alexander's Macedonian Empire. It is easy, especially through a Greek-centered education, to remember Persia only as the empire the Greeks beat. That is a badly incomplete picture. Science, technology, and infrastructure. The Royal Road and empire-wide relay postal system were, for their era, unmatched feats of logistics and communication infrastructure. Persian engineers built and maintained extensive canal irrigation systems, underground channels that moved water across arid land with minimal evaporation, a technology that spread across the Middle East and North Africa and is still in use in parts of Iran today. The empire operated a genuinely multilingual administration, Old Persian, Elamite, Akkadian, Babylonian, and Aramaic were all used for record-keeping, with Aramaic functioning as a kind of imperial lingua franca across a territory of enormous linguistic diversity, a striking early example of large-scale administrative multilingualism. Darius I standardized coinage, the Daric and Siglos, and fixed, assessed taxation across satrapies created a level of fiscal predictability that helped fund the empire's infrastructure and armies, and influenced monetary practices in the successor kingdoms that followed it. The satrapy system, provincial governance with separated civil, military, and financial oversight reporting to the center, became a template that influenced later empires, including, indirectly, aspects of Hellenistic and Roman provincial administration. The Achaemenid period saw the rise of Zoroastrianism as an influential religious tradition associated with the Persian court, though the extent to which early kings like Cyrus and Darius were personally and doctrinally Zoroastrian, versus practicing a broader Iranian religious tradition that Zoroastrianism grew out of, is genuinely debated among historians. This script won't claim more certainty than the evidence supports. The empire's general policy, not universal but broadly consistent from Cyrus onward, with real exceptions like Xerxes' harsher treatment of rebellious Babylon, of allowing conquered peoples to keep their local religious practices, laws, and to some extent local governance, stands in real contrast to some earlier Near Eastern empires' practices of mass deportation and cultural erasure, and is part of why Cyrus is remembered so positively in Jewish tradition specifically. Achaemenid administrative structures were substantially inherited and adapted by Alexander's successor kingdoms, the Seleucids in particular, and later by the Parthian and Sassanid Persian empires, who consciously looked back to the Achaemenids as models of legitimate Persian kingship. Persepolis's art and the empire's imperial iconography influenced artistic traditions across the region for centuries. And the basic geopolitical fact of a unified Iranian state stretching from Mesopotamia to Central Asia, first achieved by Cyrus, became a recurring template that later Persian empires would try to rebuild. For 220 years, the Achaemenid kings ruled the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen, through founders and usurpers, through devoted queens and murderous chiliarchs, through kings who died of old age and kings who didn't survive their first year on the throne. It was not a peaceful empire, and it was not an equal one. But it was, by the standards of its time, an empire that tried, inconsistently, imperfectly, but genuinely, to hold together dozens of peoples, languages, and religions under one administrative roof, without erasing all of them in the process. That's a harder story to tell than good Greeks, evil Persians. It is also the most true one. For a more honest story like this, do not forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe. See you next time.